We need you to resign, Nathan. Today. The words came from Douglas Warren, my boss of 8 years, delivered across a polished conference table in a room with no windows. Beside him sat Patricia from HR, her face carefully neutral. I had been called into this meeting 10 minutes ago with no explanation. I don't understand, I said, keeping my voice steady even as my stomach dropped. Douglas leaned forward with practiced concern. Look, we value everything you've done here. But there's been some confusion about the Bellwood account. Some clients are asking questions. We think it's best if you step away quietly. For your own protection. My own protection. The phrase landed like a slap. I had managed the Bellwood manufacturing account for 6 years. They were our largest client, bringing in 40% of our firm's revenue. I had never missed a deadline, never lost their trust. What confusion? I asked. Patricia slid a resignation letter across the table. We've prepared this for you. Sign today, and we'll provide a generous severance package. 3 months' salary. We'll say you're pursuing other opportunities. No fuss, no damage to your reputation. I stared at the paper. Something was very wrong. If you fight this, it becomes messy, Douglas continued. People talk. Stories spread. You know how this industry works. But if you handle this professionally, we can all move forward cleanly. The implicit threat was clear. Resign quietly or face public embarrassment. They were banking on my loyalty, my desire to avoid conflict. I had always been the dependable one, the person who solved problems instead of creating them. I need time to think, I said. We need an answer today, Patricia replied. The announcement goes out tomorrow morning. Tomorrow. They had already decided. This meeting was just theater, a chance for me to preserve my dignity by playing along. I looked at Douglas, searching for some hint of the mentor who had promoted me 3 times, who had praised my work at every company meeting. His expression was stone. Whatever had happened, whatever this was really about, he had already made his choice. I was being erased. Can I at least know what I'm being accused of? I asked. Douglas and Patricia exchanged a glance. There's no accusation, Douglas said. Just a mutual decision that it's time to part ways. Mutual. The word tasted bitter. I thought back to 3 weeks ago. Douglas had asked me to prepare a proposal for expanding our services to Bellwood Manufacturing. I had spent 2 weeks developing a comprehensive plan, researching their needs, building cost projections. I had presented it to Douglas privately before taking it to the client. He had loved it, called it brilliant, said it would secure our relationship with Bellwood for the next decade. Then, 5 days ago, I had seen Douglas walking into the executive conference room with James Caldwell, our VP of Client Relations. Through the glass wall, I had glimpsed my proposal on the table. My name was not on the cover page anymore. The next day, Douglas had stopped responding to my emails about the Bellwood expansion. When I asked him about it in the hallway, he had smiled tightly and said, I'm handling it directly now. You focus on your other accounts. Now I understood. They were pushing me out to take credit for my work. The expansion proposal would be presented to Bellwood as a company initiative, not my idea. And I would be gone before I could object. I'll need to see the severance agreement in writing, I said calmly. And I want to review my contracts before I sign anything. Patricia's smile tightened slightly. Of course. We'll have everything ready by end of day. I stood, my legs steadier than I expected. I'll give you my answer by 5 o'clock. Douglas looked surprised. He had expected me to crumble, to sign immediately out of shock or fear. But 8 years at this firm had taught me something valuable. Never make important decisions in the moment someone tries to pressure you. I walked out of that conference room with my head high. Behind me, I heard Patricia whisper something to Douglas. I didn't turn around. Back at my desk, I opened my laptop and began pulling up files. Every email I had ever sent about Bellwood. Every proposal, every meeting note, every client communication. I had been meticulous in my documentation, a habit born from working in a competitive industry where credit for success was often stolen. If they wanted me gone, I would go. But I would not go quietly. At 2:30 that afternoon, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Andrew Bellwood himself, the CEO of Bellwood Manufacturing. Nathan, tried calling your office but couldn't reach you. Can we talk? Important. My heart jumped. Andrew and I had built a strong relationship over 6 years. I had started as his account manager when Bellwood was still a mid-sized operation. Together, we had navigated 3 major expansions, 2 product launches, and 1 near crisis when a supplier fell through. I had worked weekends to find solutions. I had earned his trust. I stepped outside the building to call him back. Nathan. Andrew's voice was warm but concerned. I just got off a strange call with Douglas Warren. He said you're leaving the firm and that James Caldwell will be taking over our account. What's going on? They had not wasted time. They were already moving to control the narrative, to make my departure seem normal before I could speak to anyone. It's complicated, I said carefully. Can we meet? In person? There was a pause. I'm in town tomorrow. Lunch at Giovanni's? Noon. I'll be there. I spent that evening reviewing my employment contract. There was a non-compete clause, but it had a critical exception. I could not approach clients on behalf of a competing firm for 1 year. The language was specific. If a client approached me, or if I started my own independent consultancy, the restriction did not apply. It was a loophole I had noticed years ago, but never thought I would need. Now it might be my salvation. At 4:45, I returned to the office. Patricia was waiting with a folder. Inside was the severance agreement. 3 months' salary, continuation of health benefits for 90 days, and a mutual non-disparagement clause. Standard, except for one addition, a complete release of all claims related to intellectual property or work product created during my employment. They wanted me to sign away any right to my own ideas. The expansion proposal, the strategies I had developed, the client relationships I had built, all of it would belong to them, legally and permanently. I picked up a pen. Patricia watched me carefully, relief starting to show on her face. Then I set the pen down. I need my attorney to review this. I'll have an answer Monday. Her relief vanished. Nathan, we need this resolved. Monday, I repeated. That's reasonable. That weekend, I did not relax. I worked. I pulled together every piece of evidence I had. Emails showing my work on the Bellwood expansion, meeting notes, drafts with my name on them. I organized everything chronologically, creating a clear narrative of my contributions. I also researched business licenses and LLC registration. If I was going to do this, I needed to do it right. On Saturday afternoon, my attorney called me back after reviewing the severance agreement. Don't sign this, he said flatly. The intellectual property clause is overly broad. They're trying to prevent you from using any knowledge or strategy you developed while employed there, even for future work. It's aggressive. Can they enforce it? Maybe, maybe not. But fighting it would cost you tens of thousands in legal fees. Better to negotiate. What do they have on you? Nothing, I said. That's the problem. They want me out to take credit for my work. Then you have leverage. They need you to go quietly. Make them pay for it. On Sunday, I filed paperwork to create my own consulting firm, Mercer Solutions, LLC. The name was my mother's maiden name. Simple, professional, forgettable to anyone who did not know me well. Monday morning, I arrived at the office at 8. Douglas was already in his corner office, door closed. I could see James Caldwell in there with him. Both men leaning over documents spread across the desk. My expansion proposal. I recognized the charts I had created. I went to my desk and opened my email. At 8:15, I sent a message to Patricia with my attorney's proposed revisions to the severance agreement. Most importantly, I would not sign away my intellectual property rights. I would agree not to disparage the company, but I retained ownership of my ideas and strategies. At 8:30, Patricia appeared at my desk, her expression cold. This is not acceptable. Then we don't have an agreement, I said calmly. I'll stay on and fulfill my duties. Her jaw tightened. Douglas wants to see you. Now. I followed her to his office. James Caldwell was still there, arms crossed, expression smug. This was the man who had spent 8 years riding on the success of others, taking credit at every opportunity while contributing nothing original. You're making this difficult, Douglas said without preamble. We offered you a generous exit. You offered me a severance in exchange for erasing my contributions, I replied. I won't sign that. Your contributions? James laughed, the sound harsh. You were an account manager, Nathan. You did your job. The company owns the results. I developed the Bellwood expansion strategy, I said evenly. My research, my analysis, my recommendations. You can own it if you want, but you can't make me sign away my right to ever use similar strategies again. That clause is unreasonable. Douglas's expression hardened. If you don't resign today, we'll terminate you. For cause. There will be no severance, no references, nothing. And we'll make sure people in this industry know you were difficult to work with. There it was. The real threat. In our industry, reputation was everything. A termination for cause could follow me for years, making it nearly impossible to find comparable work. On what grounds? I asked. Insubordination. Failure to follow company directives. We'll document it. You'll fabricate it, I corrected. I have 8 years of excellent performance reviews. Not a single documented issue. If you terminate me for cause without legitimate grounds, that's wrongful termination. My attorney will love that case. The room went silent. I had called their bluff. They wanted me gone quietly, not in a legal battle that would expose their attempt to steal credit for my work. What do you want? Douglas finally asked, his voice tight. Fair severance without the intellectual property clause. 6 months' salary, not 3. And a neutral reference that confirms my employment dates and position. Nothing more. James started to object, but Douglas raised a hand to stop him. Fine. You have until Wednesday to clean out your desk. We'll announce your departure as a resignation to pursue independent opportunities. Agreed, I said. I left his office with my hands steady, but my mind racing. I had won that battle, but the war was just beginning. I knew what they would do next. Contact Bellwood immediately, solidify their control, present the expansion proposal as a company initiative before I could say anything. But I had something they did not expect. Andrew Bellwood had already contacted me, and I was meeting him for lunch in exactly 90 minutes. I went back to my desk, packed a small box of personal items, and walked out. I did not say goodbye to anyone. I had been there 8 years, but in that moment, I realized most of my colleagues had already heard some version of the story Douglas and James were spreading. Their eyes followed me, curious and judgmental. Let them wonder. They would know the truth soon enough. Giovanni's was a quiet Italian restaurant 2 blocks from Bellwood Manufacturing's headquarters. I arrived 10 minutes early. Andrew was already there, seated in a corner booth, 2 menus on the table. Nathan, he greeted me, standing to shake my hand. His grip was firm, his expression concerned. Talk to me. What's really going on? I took a breath and told him everything. The forced resignation, the attempt to make me sign away my intellectual property rights, the expansion proposal that had my name quietly removed from it. I did not embellish or exaggerate. I simply laid out the facts. Andrew listened without interrupting, his expression growing darker with each detail. So the proposal Douglas wants to present to me on Thursday, he said slowly. That's your work. Every word, I confirmed. I spent 2 weeks researching your operations, analyzing your growth patterns, identifying opportunities. Douglas saw it and decided it was too valuable to let me take credit for it. Andrew leaned back, his jaw tight. I've worked with you for 6 years, Nathan. You've never lied to me, never let me down. Douglas Warren, on the other hand, I've met maybe twice. He shows up for the big meetings, smiles, shakes hands, then disappears. You're the one who actually does the work. I appreciate that, I said carefully. And I'm not asking you to get involved in my dispute with the firm. That's not fair to you. But, Andrew prompted, but I'm starting my own consulting firm. I've already filed the paperwork. I have no non-compete restrictions that prevent me from working with clients who choose to work with me. If you want to continue our relationship, I'm available. Andrew was quiet for a moment, considering. You're asking me to leave Warren and Associates? I'm offering you an alternative, I said. You have a meeting with Douglas on Thursday. Hear what he has to say. Look at the proposal. Then decide who you trust to execute it. I already know who I trust, Andrew said. But I need to handle this correctly. My board will ask questions if I suddenly switch consulting firms. Then let me make this easy, I said. Meet with Douglas. Listen to his pitch. If you're not satisfied, call me. If you are satisfied, I wish you well. No hard feelings. It was a gamble. I was betting that Douglas and James would not be able to deliver the same level of insight and commitment that I had provided for 6 years. I was betting that Andrew valued substance over showmanship. Andrew nodded slowly. All right, I'll hear them out. But Nathan, if their proposal is just your work with their name on it, I'm going to have a problem with that. As you should, I said. We finished lunch talking about his family, his company's recent projects, anything but the mess I had just walked away from. It felt normal, comfortable. By the time we parted ways, I felt something I had not felt in days. Hope. Wednesday afternoon, I returned to Warren and Associates one final time to turn in my building access card and laptop. Patricia met me in the lobby, unwilling to let me back into the office proper. Your severance check will be mailed, she said, her tone clipped. We'll provide the agreed-upon reference if contacted. Thank you. I said, meaning none of it. As I walked out, I passed James Caldwell in the parking lot. He was on his phone, laughing about something. When he saw me, his expression shifted to smug satisfaction. "Good luck out there, Nathan," he called. "It's a tough market." I did not respond. Let him think he had won. That evening, I received an email from Douglas. It was brief. "Per our agreement, please be advised that you are not to contact any current Warren and Associates clients for a period of 1 year. Violation of this agreement will result in legal action." I forwarded it to my attorney with a simple note. "They're still trying to control the narrative." His response came 10 minutes later. "Let them try. You sign nothing that prevents clients from contacting you. Document everything." Thursday morning, I watched the clock. Andrew's meeting with Douglas and James was scheduled for 10. I imagined them in the conference room, presenting my expansion proposal, answering questions with my research, taking credit for my ideas. At 11:30, my phone rang. "Andrew Bellwood." "That was interesting," he said without preamble. "They presented a proposal that was clearly yours. Same analysis, same recommendations, even the same phrasing in some sections. But when I asked detailed questions about implementation, they fumbled." James tried to redirect to high-level strategy. Douglas kept saying they'd develop those details with my team. "They don't understand the work," I said. "They just copied it." "Exactly." So I asked them directly, "Who actually developed this proposal?" Douglas said it was a collaborative effort, but that you had left the firm for personal reasons. He made it sound like you quit on your own. I felt anger rise, but kept my voice level. "What did you tell them?" "I told them I needed time to consider their proposal. Then I called you. Nathan, I want to hire Mercer Solutions. Whatever this is going to cost me, it's worth it to work with someone I trust." Relief and vindication washed over me in equal measure. "I'll send you a proposal by Monday. Fair rates, transparent billing, and a commitment to the same level of service you've always received from me." "I know you will," Andrew said. "And Nathan, I'm going to tell Douglas tomorrow that Bellwood Manufacturing is terminating our contract with Warren and Associates. I want him to know why." Friday afternoon, I was setting up my home office when my phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number. I answered cautiously. "Nathan Mercer?" The voice was unfamiliar, older, authoritative. "Speaking. This is Paul Henley. I'm on the board at Bellwood Manufacturing. Andrew told me what happened with Warren and Associates. I wanted to reach out personally." I sat up straighter. Paul Henley was a legend in manufacturing, a man whose name carried weight across multiple industries. "Mr. Henley, it's an honor. Call me Paul. Listen, Andrew trusts you, and I trust Andrew's judgment. But I also did my homework. I made some calls, spoke to people who've worked with you. Everyone says the same thing. You're thorough, ethical, and you deliver results." "I appreciate that," I said, unsure where this was going. "Here's why I'm calling. I sit on 2 other boards. Both companies use consulting firms for strategic planning. Both have been complaining about the lack of personalized attention from these big firms. I'd like to introduce you." My breath caught. "That would be incredible. Send me your materials. I'll make the introductions. What happened to you at Warren and Associates was wrong. Let's make sure it turns into your best opportunity." After we hung up, I sat in silence, processing what had just happened. 1 client had become 3 potential clients. My quiet decision to maintain integrity, to walk away rather than fight dirty, was paying off in ways I had not imagined. Monday morning, Douglas Warren called me. I let it go to voicemail. An hour later, he called again. This time, I answered. "Nathan." His voice was strained, the authoritative tone gone. "We need to talk." "I'm listening." "Bellwood Manufacturing just terminated our contract. They cited lack of confidence in our team's ability to execute. This is going to cost us millions." I said nothing. "Did you poison them against us?" Douglas demanded, anger breaking through. "Did you badmouth the firm?" "I never said a negative word about Warren and Associates to Andrew Bellwood," I said truthfully. "I simply offered him an alternative. He made his own decision based on 6 years of experience working with me." "You can't do this," Douglas said, desperation creeping into his voice. "That non-compete clause," "which I never signed," I interrupted. "I negotiated different terms, remember? And even if I had signed it, the clause specifically prevents me from approaching clients on behalf of a competing firm." Andrew approached me. "I started my own independent consultancy. Nothing I've done violates any agreement." Silence on the other end. "Then, James said you wouldn't have the guts to go independent." He said you'd find another job and disappear. James was wrong about a lot of things, I said. Over the next 2 weeks, my phone did not stop ringing. Paul Henley made good on his promise, introducing me to decision-makers at 2 Fortune 500 companies. Both were frustrated with their current consulting firm's impersonal service. Both wanted someone who would invest time in understanding their operations. I landed contracts with both companies within 10 days. My home office transformed into a real workspace. I hired a part-time assistant to handle scheduling and invoicing. I brought on a junior consultant, a sharp graduate who reminded me of myself 8 years ago. I taught her everything I had learned, shared credit openly, and made sure her name appeared on every report she contributed to. Meanwhile, Warren and Associates was struggling. The loss of the Bellwood account had been a public embarrassment. Industry publications ran articles about the contract termination. Andrew Bellwood, in a surprisingly candid interview, mentioned that consulting firms sometimes lose sight of the relationship building that makes them valuable in the first place. He did not mention me by name, but everyone in the industry understood what had happened. Word spread quickly. The account manager who had actually done the work had been pushed out, and the client had followed him. 3 other clients from Warren and Associates reached out to me. I was careful with these inquiries, referring 2 of them back to the firm when I felt the relationship was genuinely with the company, not with me personally. But one client, Paulson Logistics, had been mine from the beginning. I had brought them to Warren and Associates 4 years ago through a personal connection. They call me directly. Nathan, we just got notice that James Caldwell is taking over our account. The CEO, Harold Paulson, said. We don't know James Caldwell. We know you. Are you still available? I was. Paulson Logistics became my 4th major client. That night, Douglas called me again. This time, his voice was not angry. It was defeated. You're destroying us, he said quietly. 2 more clients just gave notice. They're all following you. I'm not destroying anything, I replied. I'm honoring the relationships I built. You made a choice to push me out, Douglas. You decided my work was valuable, but I was replaceable. You were wrong. We could have worked this out, he said. If you had just been reasonable. I was reasonable. I cut him off. I asked for fair severance and credit for my own work. You threatened me with termination for cause and tried to make me sign away my rights to ideas I had developed. You chose this path. There was a long pause. What do you want? To come back? We can renegotiate. I don't want to come back, I said. I want you to understand something, Douglas. I gave you 8 years of loyalty. I worked weekends, solved impossible problems, and never asked for special treatment. The moment it became inconvenient to give me credit, you threw me away. That was your choice. Now live with it. 2 months after leaving Warren and Associates, I received an email from Patricia in HR. The subject line read, Reference Request. Inside was a form asking me to provide details about my employment history for some unnamed purpose. It felt like a fishing expedition, an attempt to see if I would badmouth the firm or give them ammunition to discredit me. I responded with exactly what we had agreed upon. Employment dates, job title, and a 1-sentence confirmation that I had resigned to pursue independent opportunities. Nothing more, nothing less. My attorney had been right. Documentation was everything. I had kept copies of every email, every proposal, every piece of evidence that showed my contributions. I had operated within every legal boundary. If they wanted to fight me, they would find nothing to use. Meanwhile, Mercer Solutions was thriving. I had 6 major clients now, each relationship built on trust and proven results. My revenue in 3 months exceeded my annual salary at Warren and Associates. I hired 2 more consultants, both experienced professionals who had been pushed aside by larger firms that valued youth and low salaries over expertise. We became known as the consultancy that actually listened to clients, that delivered customized solutions instead of cookie-cutter strategies. Industry colleagues started calling to congratulate me. Some admitted they had heard Douglas's version of events, that I had left abruptly, that I had been difficult to work with, but my success spoke louder than his narrative. 6 months after my forced resignation, I attended the National Industry Conference in Chicago. It was the industry's biggest annual event, where consulting firms competed for visibility and clients shopped for new partnerships. Warren and Associates had a booth in the main exhibition hall. I walked past it and saw James Caldwell standing there, looking uncomfortable as he tried to engage passers-by, who seemed more interested in the free coffee than his pitch. Douglas was presenting a seminar in one of the smaller conference rooms. I did not attend, but colleagues who did told me later that he spent most of the time defending his firm's recent client losses, blaming market changes and increased competition. He did not mention that most of those clients had not left for competitors. They had left to work with me. My own seminar, titled Building Client Relationships That Last, was in a larger room and packed to capacity. I spoke about the importance of integrity in consulting, about delivering on promises, and about the value of giving credit where credit was due. I did not mention Warren and Associates by name. I did not need to. Everyone in that room knew my story. After the seminar, at least 20 people approached me with business cards and inquiries. 3 of them became clients within the month. Andrew Bellwood invited me to dinner during the conference. We met at a steakhouse near Navy Pier, the Chicago skyline glittering behind us. "You've exceeded every expectation," Andrew said, raising his glass. "The expansion plan we implemented based on your proposal? We're ahead of schedule and under budget. My board is thrilled. That's what happens when someone actually understands your business," I said with a smile. "You know what the best part is?" Andrew continued. "I don't have to explain myself anymore. When I recommend Mercer Solutions to other CEOs, they don't ask about your firm's size or your years in business. They ask about results. And the results speak for themselves." He paused, then added, "I heard Douglas tried to poach one of your consultants last month." I nodded. I had heard the same thing. Douglas had reached out to my junior consultant, offering her a position at a higher salary. She had declined immediately and told me about it. "He's desperate," Andrew observed. "Warren and Associates has lost a third of its client base in 6 months. James Caldwell was fired. They're talking about a merger with another firm just to survive. I take no pleasure in that," I said honestly. "I didn't set out to destroy them. I just wanted to do good work and be treated fairly." "I know. That's why you won." A year after my forced resignation, I received an unexpected email. It was from a recruiter representing a private equity firm interested in acquiring boutique consulting firms with strong client relationships and proven track records. They wanted to buy Mercer Solutions. The offer was substantial, more money than I had ever imagined earning. It would set me up financially for life, but it would also mean giving up the company I had built, the independence I had fought for. I thought about it for exactly 1 day before declining. "I appreciate the offer," I wrote back, "but Mercer Solutions isn't for sale. I built this company on relationships and integrity. Those aren't things I can transfer to new ownership." The recruiter called me personally. "Mr. Mercer, I've been doing this for 15 years. Most people jump at offers like this. Why turn it down?" "Because a year ago, someone tried to take credit for my work and erase my contributions," I explained. "I left to prove that I was more than just a name on a roster. Selling now would mean accepting that this company is just a financial asset. It's more than that to me." There was a pause. Then the recruiter laughed softly. "You know what? Good for you. The world needs more people who know what they stand for." After we hung up, I felt certainty settle over me. This was never about money or revenge. It was about refusing to let someone else define my worth. 18 months after leaving Warren and Associates, I was invited to speak at a business school where I had earned my MBA 15 years earlier. The topic was career resilience and professional ethics. I told my story to a room of graduate students who listened with rapt attention. I talked about the forced resignation, the attempt to steal credit for my work, and the choice I had made to start over rather than compromise my integrity. "What would you do differently?" one student asked during the Q&A. I thought about it. "Nothing," I said finally. Every choice I made was guided by one principle: do the right thing, even when it's hard. I documented my work, honored my commitments, and refused to burn bridges even when I was angry. Those decisions protected me when everything fell apart. Another student raised her hand. "But weren't you scared? Starting your own business without a safety net." "Terrified," I admitted. "But I was more scared of staying in a place where my contributions didn't matter, where loyalty was one-sided." Sometimes the scariest choice is also the right one. After the session, several students approached me with questions and thanks. One young woman, in particular, caught my attention. "I'm interning at a firm that sounds a lot like your old company," she said quietly. "They take credit for junior staff's work all the time. I've been wondering if I should say something or just keep my head down. Your story helped me realize I need to document everything and be ready to stand up for myself." "Do that," I encouraged her. "And remember, Your work has value. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. 2 years after my forced resignation, I received a letter from Douglas Warren. It arrived at my office, handwritten on plain stationery, no company letterhead. I almost threw it away without reading it, but curiosity won. Nathan, it began, I owe you an apology. Warren and Associates is closing. We're merging with another firm, and I'm retiring. Looking back, I realized that pushing you out was the beginning of the end for us. You were the backbone of our client relationships, and I took that for granted. I let James convince me that we could maintain those relationships without you. I was wrong. I hope you can forgive me. I read the letter twice, then set it aside. Part of me wanted to feel vindicated, to take satisfaction in his admission of guilt. But mostly I just felt tired of the whole thing. I did not respond to the letter. What would be the point? Douglas had made his choices, and I had made mine. His apology did not change anything. Instead, I focused on what mattered: my company, my clients, my team. Mercer Solutions now employed 8 consultants, all of whom I treated with respect and gave proper credit for their contributions. We had 12 major clients and a reputation for excellence built on substance, not showmanship. I had proven what I set out to prove, that integrity and competence would outlast manipulation and credit stealing. I did not need Douglas's apology to validate that. Today, 3 years after that closed-door meeting where I was told to resign for my own good, I sit in an office that bears my name. Mercer Solutions has grown beyond anything I imagined when I filed those first LLC papers in a moment of desperation and determination. We have 15 employees now, all of whom know their contributions are valued. We have 23 clients, many of whom have been with us since the beginning. And we have something that cannot be bought or fabricated: a reputation built on trust. I keep Douglas's apology letter in a drawer, not as a trophy, but as a reminder. It reminds me that the easy path, staying quiet, accepting mistreatment, preserving relationships at the cost of self-respect, is rarely the right path. The clients I supposedly took from Warren and Associates, they chose to follow competence and integrity over corporate branding. That was their decision, not my manipulation. My forced resignation was meant to erase me, to rewrite history so my contributions disappeared while others claimed credit. Instead, it became the catalyst for building something better, something truly mine. Sometimes the people who try to diminish you end up doing you the greatest favor. They force you to prove, to yourself and to everyone watching, exactly what you're capable of achieving when you refuse to accept someone else's narrative about your worth. I was told to resign to protect the company. In the end, I resigned to protect something far more valuable: my integrity. And that made all the difference.